What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about American Horror Story 1984 and a theory that was brought to me in one of my recent videos that I just thought needed a couple of minutes to really dive into, and I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions about this in the comment section below. But before I get into any of this, I just have to give a huge shout out. You can see it on the screen here, to Brownie Gamer. He came to me with this theory, and if you can't see it or if you're listening to this on the car or whatever, I'm going to read it out for you. He says, I think this season will have a twist. What if 1984 is a Madison Montgomery movie? And okay, if you guys don't remember, Madison Montgomery was one of the witches in the Coven season of American Horror Story. Coven and Apocalypse, both season 3 and season 8 respectively. And I feel like even though this would be crazy, it's probably never going to happen, I wanted to just dive a little bit into this because Ryan Murphy, just last year, during his Hollywood Star Walk of Fame ceremony, when he finally got one, he did go ahead and say, the witches will be back. Not next season, but we have something really fun planned. And of course, obviously next season after Apocalypse is American Horror Story 1984, so yeah, that would kind of rule this out, right? Well, not necessarily. This could be just classic misdirection from him, so no one's really guessing what the twist is. In fact, if you remember, before American Horror Story was even promoted, we knew anything about it. I mean, we knew about it. We knew that they were going to do the crossover between Coven and Murder House, and we didn't really know how it was going to shake up or even when we were going to get it. I mean, early on last year, it kind of felt like season 9, the one we're watching right now, was going to be Apocalypse. And before that, all the reports said that it was going to be set in the future, it was going to have something to do with space travel, and all of this other stuff. That sounded really interesting, but we haven't heard a peep of that storyline since. Maybe they threw it out, maybe they're saving it for season 10, or just something in general, but we never really got any explanation as to why they changed it. Maybe they were keeping it under wraps, maybe they were leaking things that weren't true, and they were trying to misdirect people before they could really start pushing the fact that we were going to get the big crossover season that everyone really wanted. So maybe this is misdirection, maybe he's not really talking about the witches themselves coming back or their lore or just expanding on their story, but some of the characters like Madison Montgomery, and this is just kind of a prequel to her star-driven career before she joins the Coven back in season 3. And that would really explain this season, at least if you look at it from the first 2 episodes. Because of the one thing that we learned after 2 episodes of this season is that they are steamrolling through a classic 1980s slasher film storyline in such a way that by the end of the 2nd episode, we are already at the climax of what would be a classic 80s horror film. And where were they going to go from here? It's not like last season. It really isn't like last season where they can do something completely different for 3 episodes and then just do flashback episodes for all the characters involved, because when it comes to Coven and Murder House, we already have a grip of who all these characters are, the setup and the world that they're living in. Yes, you can expand that with the Warlocks and with everything they did in that season, but if you remember, the fan base was kind of split as to whether or not that was an effective use of the time for the story they were trying to tell. It might not be in the best interest for them this season to have a story that plays out in gangbuster style over the first couple episodes and then just falls apart because they have no more story to tell by the time they get to the end of the season. In fact, it would make a lot more sense to go back into the playbook of American Horror Story and do something a little bit more akin to American Horror Story Roanoke that had a pretty big substantial twist in the 5th or 6th episode where it shook up the entire formula of the season thus far and started doing something completely different that a lot of people, myself included, didn't see coming at the time. And that to me would be probably the most interesting thing that they could do right here and now. And I've talked about before that I do think a twist is coming. I do think a shakeup is coming. We're not going to be in this camp for the entire time. In fact, one of the things I would like to see them do is transition between this camp situation into a Nightmare on Elm Street type of story where dreams are involved, or maybe even a Halloween story where we go to the suburbs of 1980. That would be really interesting, but what if the shakeup is a little bit bigger than that, and this becomes a little bit more than just a 1980s setting, but is in fact a movie set where Madison is starring in her very first film as a prequel? That way, Ryan Murphy is not entirely lying when he says the witches have nothing really to do with next season, but they are coming back. We get Madison back, we get the witch story back, and we have a pretty big substantial shakeup that might lead into a little bit of a prequel for Madison joining the Coven, and that is the rest of the story. As for what this movie could possibly be about, as I said in the review for the first episode of this season, for a lot of people who might not have realized, the Night Stalker has been seen in American Horror Story before. In fact, we saw him for the very first time and heard his name in American Horror Story Hotel. So what if this is a movie, it's a movie about the origin, or at least the exploration into who the Night Stalker is, and that is his connection. That's the general connection between this season and all the other seasons, kind of saying that yes, he does exist because Coven and Murder House connect to American Horror Story Hotel in such a way that they're all generally connected. But if this whole season, or at least half the season, is a movie, then it pretty much connects in the same way that American Horror Story Cult connected to American Horror Story Freak Show, where we saw Twisty the Clown has a comic book series where he terrorizes people. It didn't really connect much more besides that, where he was kind of this cultural icon. What if they're doing the exact same thing this season with the Night Stalker, as this is his own 1980s horror slasher franchise, or at least the beginning of it? But really, at the end of the day, it is just a movie that doesn't fully connect or have anything to do with the broader narrative of some of these seasons of American Horror Story. Now, that's probably not going to happen, but I do think it's interesting, and I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions about this in the comment section below. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.